So I want to welcome everyone to the webinar, Marketing as an Organizational Catalyst During Crisis, a case study into the never normal. I have the honor and the privilege to be with some incredible people. Let me introduce myself and introduce the session, and then give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. My name is Sai, and this webinar is a deep look into what made May 8th happen. And on May 8th, there was an event that was extremely powerful. Leadership through and beyond the crisis, a full day virtual conference that was hosted by MicroStrategies, by 1909 Digital, and by Ted Bauer of The Context of Things. And it was a global virtual conference, kicked off by, of course, the reality of COVID-19 and the human crisis that triggered that event, and the themes that emerged, and the narratives and the panels that unfolded. But before going too far, I definitely want to allow folks to introduce themselves. But let me just do a little bit of introduction if I can. Folks that we're going to be talking with today are what I like to reference as the Mighty Three. And the Mighty Three are very much the gem who is marketing at MicroStrategies. They're the magic behind what made that conference real. And very openly, without them, it wouldn't have happened. And this is their story. So I'd love for you folks to introduce yourselves a little bit.
I'll go first. I am Avery Quayle. I am currently the Senior Marketing Director here at MicroStrategy. I have a history of coming and working with organizations to either help them establish a marketing function in-house, because they've traditionally outsourced their marketing function, or in other cases, coming in and helping them revamp their marketing function.
I'll go next. I'm Kelly Curtis. I am a marketing manager here at MicroStrategies. I've been with Micro almost 10 years now, and I've really had the opportunity to grow and evolve in my career here with the company. I'm absolutely passionate about event marketing. I love the organizing, the creative outlook, and really just putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. So I feel like it's my responsibility to ensure that the customer experience is exceptional via the outreach we're doing as a company.
And I'm Colleen Busco. I handle all the digital aspects of marketing at MicroStrategies. So, my history through now has really channeled the digital side, and I enjoy being on the behind the scenes end of things and working with the team to really make things happen.
Wonderful. And what you three do is magic, very, very openly. Exactly as Avery, you said, you help situate it. Kelly, you bring the experience to life and help orchestrate it. And definitely Colleen brings in all the digital aspects that deliver on that experience. So by all means, some real magic all around. So I'm to really get into this story, I want to give a little bit of background. And as I give a little bit of background, please don't hesitate to interrupt me and clarify, chime in, elaborate, whatever you feel makes sense. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. So the whys and the hows behind the conference were very, very critical for people to really get a context of what unfolded. MicroStrategies has been around for I think around 40 years out of New Jersey, as I understand.
Yeah.
That time frame, definitely focused on technical solutions to drive business results in that approach. And there's 4 sort of practice areas that are key. One of them is focused on business process and content services. Another one on data and analytics, hybrid technology, as well as managed services and security. So as an organization, there's 3 core functions that I've been able to engage and really wrap my head around. Definitely marketing, which is key. Sales is key. And then the practices themselves. Of course, you've got the leadership team that is crucial to bring integration. And then the beautiful thing I think about where MicroStrategies really situates itself is it's within an ecosystem of tremendous partners like IBM, HPE, Lenovo, Red Hat, Darktrace, Box, if you will, Alfresco, amongst others that supported. So that's I think a quick picture of who MicroStrategies is. Anything to add at all? All good?
No, I think
No.
you encapsulated it pretty effectively.
Excellent, excellent. So I got involved at really the tail end of 2019 working with the hybrid group. Then as we moved into 2020, got involved with the leadership team, got involved with sales, then ultimately, of course, marketing and the practices very, very critically. From a timeline perspective, just to give again the backdrop to your experience, when the COVID crisis hit, really at the end of February, the key things that I think really began to manifest, I'm going to say were encapsulated by two words. One is marketing's ability to partner, and two, marketing's ability to catalyze the whole organization. Those were two key pillars from my observations. Quick timeline. COVID crisis hit end of February. First 2 weeks, everybody's in shock in the world, trying to understand what to do. MicroStrategies is likewise. I'm working with you. We're getting reoriented. The question comes up of how do we contribute? Anthony, to his credit and to the leadership teams and the whole organizations, the question of how we contribute back to the world became top of mind. So that's, kudos all around. Those were really the first 2 weeks. As we moved into the next 3 weeks in March, we started to do webcasts. I think the first one was on leadership, and then HR, if I remember correctly, kind of was unfolding. The thing that I began to see across the landscape, across the world, is really a resurgence of anti-fragility and resilience concepts. At the same time, some things were real, some things were noise. As I began to see those, I started the conversation, as we all experienced, around really COVID being a human crisis. We began to identify very explicitly what was happening in the landscape. I started to grab the themes. I started to raise awareness as to what was going on. That really became a portion of March. As we moved into April, I started to really begin to identify sort of people that could contribute in terms of a conference. I started to reach out to them. I continued to build the narrative with the themes, raise the awareness of the group, if you will, the leadership team, as to what was possible. And I think really by the second week in April, at that point, we kind of got the green light, for lack of better words, to advance with the conference. And then we spent 3 weeks that I'm really going to hone in on in May to make, or forgive me, at the end of April, as well as the first week in May, to really go ahead and manifest the conference, and it really advanced, I'll say, a degree of transformation within the organization through marketing's ability to partner and catalyze the whole organization. That's a big backdrop. Anything to add, anything to change, anything to clarify at all?
No.
No.
I think you got it all.
No. You got it all.
Excellent. So my awe of you is that you lived the themes. That's the power of what I saw. You lived the themes, and you did that in partnership with the leadership team, likewise, and then catalyzing the whole organization. So if the crisis is a catalyst, what I'm really now, I want to open it up to you and just dive right in as to what did you experience? What did you experience in those 3 weeks? What comes to mind?
I'm gonna go and say, when this entire process started to unfold, when COVID-19 came to the US and all of a sudden we went into sort of this lockdown mode, everything that we had planned for the year just sort of went up in smoke. And, weeks of planning and working was all of a sudden inappropriate, or it was no longer relevant. And I know that each one of us were faced with uncertainty because we questioned how we could contribute to the organization, given that everything that we had traditionally done we could no longer do it. So that was sort of the backdrop, I think, emotionally, where we were all at as this entire process started to unfold.
So what?
Yeah,
So Avery,
and
yeah, please go on, Kelly. Please go on.
I was just going to say, adding on to what Avery said, because we went into a totally new way of marketing everything, really, and it all moved virtual. I think learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which sounds kind of funny, but I think, we were put in a position of doing things we weren't necessarily experienced at or comfortable with. And as we got uncomfortable doing them, because we had to get outside of our own comfort zone, as we got uncomfortable, I think we realized that being uncomfortable really pushed us to a new place and to a new level of marketing.
Yeah, and Sai, to hear you go through the timeline, it's so funny because, we just lived it. It wasn't that long ago, but to hear you go from the beginning of how things really started, I was brought back to those moments where it was like, okay, everyone go home, the office is closing, and the feeling was just uncertainty. And I know that that's something that everyone across the whole country and across the world has been feeling. And then, you feel it for your personal life. Like, what does this mean for home? What does this mean for our children, for our family members? And then also to think of, what does this mean for me at work? As a digital marketing manager, what does that mean? How can the skills that I have, how are we going to move forward using what I do have? And, like we were saying, what we had done and what we had built up to this point, it didn't really matter. It was sort of, where are we going now? And to know that, normally you can look to your team and say, I need some direction. Where do we go? And we didn't have that yet because we didn't know. But those first days were those critical times where we could have been like, you know what? We can't do our job. We just have to step away and focus on other things, like let the business run how it is, but we can't do marketing. And so those couple days we got together and we were like, you know what, we have all these skills. We can benefit not only the company, but our ecosystem that we have as MicroStrategy. And, that first week that you were saying, I know it went by quickly, but that was really the defining week for us. I feel like that really, we were able to change our direction.
Well, and I think we realized that we all really work best under pressure and under stress when it comes to doing some of this. I think marketing teams are usually the first affected in an organization or company when crisis strikes or when financial struggles strike. Marketing is the first group to be reduced or cut. And so, I think having that, like Colleen said, you're going into this week of uncertainty and knowing, where's my job going to be a month from now? And then it's, what can we do as a team to really show our value and really show our worth and show the organization, you need us. You can't do this without us. And that stress and that pressure, I think, really pushed us to a new level.
And it was also the realization, as Colleen's talking about that week, that defining week, it was also the realization that we were actually capable of so much more than we had originally thought we were. And, looking back now, before the crisis, I just recognize that we limited ourselves in so many ways because we stopped ourselves from thinking about all the possible by automatically thinking that's impossible. There's no way we could do this. And that was one of the things that I personally took out of this experience, was that there are things that, had you spoken to us 3-4 months ago, we would have said, no, that's not possible. There's no way we can do that. And now we're like, yeah, we absolutely can do this. We can absolutely be whatever it is, or we can do whatever it is we're talking about tackling.
Wonderful. So can I just pull out a few things from what you've said, if you will, and,
Sure.
and as you mentioned them. Well, number one is the first week seemed like it was pivotal. The first of the 3 weeks, the first one was pivotal.
Absolutely.
So, and I definitely want to dive into that. But what you said, a few things you said that are very crucial. Number one, because of the uncertainty, in all reality, and I think, Colleen, you said it best, if you look at the timeline, I had no perspective as to that would be the timeline. I was in the uncertainty as well. and we only make sense of it after the fact, right? So that, by every stretch, there was no no master plan, I guess, for lack of better words, by any stretch. So that's one. I think two, the big trigger for me, and I really want to get to kind of what triggered you to break through some of these things, but the big trigger for me when I saw what was happening is I classified it as a human crisis. And as soon as I used that label, to me, it changed my whole point of view. So, so I want to ask a question. There's other pieces I want to summarize. I'll come back to, but in that first week, what is it that allowed you to really begin to break down, I'll say, the historical paradigms, beliefs that you've held? Because you had a breakthrough. What caused you to break through
Well,
that?
honestly, I don't know. I'm going to just speak from my own experience, but it was honestly the fact that if we couldn't do what we had done traditionally, like we could not. So we were very quickly confronted with how do we stay relevant? How do we continue to keep MicroStrategies top of mind while also recognizing that people are struggling, that companies are struggling, that our customers and our prospects are struggling, and how do we help them without becoming across tone deaf to what they're experiencing. That was, for me, that was what sort of framed everything that went forward. Like, does this make sense? And I think I even said when we were talking to some of our partners about campaigns that we were looking to change was, will this come across as tone deaf? That was very much, I think, a reality in our world as we move forward. Like, this is, as you said, it's a human crisis. So we have to respect that and understand that this is so much bigger than just what MicroStrategy is trying to sell. It's so much bigger than us helping companies with their technology needs. So.
Yeah, and being like Avery's saying, we had to be sensitive to how whatever we put out there, what we were writing, or even the webcast, is how it was going to make people feel. I think we all agreed we wanted to show that compassion as well as be that resource to them, not be a sales organization. Because we needed to relate to them, and we're all going through this together. We all went through it together. And I think it was just finding that unity in that community.
Yeah, and honestly, I think a lot of it was, fear, and you're put into survival mode. And that doesn't mean surviving in your role in the company. It's looking to your neighbors and saying, we are going to survive this. We are going to thrive through this. And especially for marketing, when we say we're going to survive and help the organization survive, that does mean thriving. Marketing is here to not only keep the business running, but to really help it flourish. And I think to take that aspect of what we've done every day and dedicate our careers to and putting it into that human element, we're not just robots going in there to, for me, execute things on the website and send emails. I'm going to take the skills I have for me, Colleen, as the human, to relate to our audience and say, aside from who we are there, we are people and we feel the same uncertainty, the fear that you're feeling. And for us in marketing, we do, it always helps when you believe in your message. And so that part of it was not necessarily difficult, the execution of it. And yes, we did have to be careful about our messaging to make sure that we were putting out the tone that we believed that we felt. We were not trying to sell. We were not trying to get new customers. We were just trying to say, we are in this with you. And especially, like you said, our first webcasts, we were not saying, we know everything, so you should come listen to us because we're the experts. We're saying, we're not sure. We've gathered people who have, vast experience in these fields. And, while they're admitting they also don't know what's coming, maybe their insights can help you, first feel a little bit more secure, but then also just see that we will get through it. We will survive it. And there will be an after, we will see that. So to me, like, initially everything we did was motivated by our human side. We were not fueled by who we are in our job description.
I think Colleen said something that we haven't touched on that we started doing, we hadn't done before, and that was we really partnered with other organizations and other people from the community to bring these webcasts alive. And I think that was a very important piece of it, was showing it's not just us coming to you to share the story. We're sharing these stories with other people, that it was real and it is authentic. And that's really, I think, what was most important to all of us, is showing that authenticity to connect with the audience.
So I love what you're saying, because it goes back to the core. It's a human crisis. And you mentioned some very key things again that I really want to really pull out. One that it seems like by really classifying it or looking at it through the vernacular of a human crisis, it made it very, very approachable together, versus let's just lock up from a fear element. That seems to have been key. The other thing is exactly as you mentioned, there was, and I think even Ted had mentioned some things online when he got involved and what have you. This is not a sales effort. This is a human effort that we're all going through together, and we're all going to learn together. So some very, very powerful things. I want to dig, there's a lot of great stuff that you've mentioned, but I want to dig a little bit deeper, because the partnership, like you said, was crucial to be able to reach out to the ecosystem. And quite honestly, I mean, I know some of the conversations I was overwhelmed as to how much people wanted to contribute in terms of the partners and in terms of who wanted to participate. So I want to get a little bit deeper. If you look at most individuals and most organizations that go through a crisis of sorts, this is a big one, of course, some will lock up. They will be locked up by the fear. They won't be able to penetrate through the doubt or overcome the fear in doing something beyond themselves. But you three, I'll say very specifically, didn't hesitate. You three just broke right through. That's what I'm interested in. That nugget of light is powerful. Did you wait? What were you thinking? Let's say go back to the first week. I realize I'm rambling a little bit. Go back to the first week, and it was on the table that we were going to do this. And I think I had worked for the most part really with Avery historically, and then definitely a little bit more with Kelly, and even less with Colleen. But what ran through your mind as to you're going to break through this? I want that spark so we can leverage it.
So I don't think it was that I wasn't afraid. Like, I was afraid a lot, and like there was a lot of anxiety throughout the entire process. I think I even talked to you about it early on. Could we do this? Could we get it off the ground? Could we make it happen? Like, we fully believe the message behind it, but could we make it happen? And it wasn't I don't want to say breaking through, because that means, to me, breaking through means we overcame it. To me, it was more just living with it and just continuing forward anyway. At least on my end, that's sort of how I approached it. Like, I wasn't certain. I had fears, I had doubts, but I believed that there was, the purpose behind this was so much bigger than whatever I was experiencing. So it was a matter, quite frankly, of showing up every day and just figuring out what the next step was.
I think for me, we learned very early on that, an underlying theme of this whole conference was anti-fragility and resilience. And I know for me, going into working with you, Sai, even on previous webcasts leading up to the conference, I didn't know what anti-fragility meant. I had no clue. And I had to do a lot of reading and a lot of research to really grasp the concept and understand. But let me tell you what, when I understood what it was, it became very clear that anti-fragility is a state of mind. It is a way of thinking. And I think for me, as I really started to explore that led into this conference manifesting, and how I processed it, how in my head I organized it, I ran it, is your state of mind shifts. And while there's fear and while there's uncertainty or being uncomfortable, that's what makes you thrive. And that's what pushed us to really break through and do the best we do at this conference. So
Yeah,
that's my
Kelly,
take.
it's so funny because I was thinking for us to have pulled this off, it's not just our day job. Like, you have to be passionate about it. Otherwise, something this big is not going to, happen. And like you're saying, we started this and we were kind of like, I'm not even quite sure, but we're diving in 100%. And I think that has shown through what we've done, our whole time together as a team. But, for me, it was a little easier because you two, along with Sai, sort of started it already. And then it was like, Colleen, we're doing this and this is what we need from you. And I was like, woo, let's go. Like, this is awesome. This is going to be a great event. And there's no doubt that we can do it. Yeah, sure. It's like, how are we going to figure out this small detail? How are we going to figure this out? But it was at no point where we like, oh, we can't do it. There's no way this is going to happen. It was just sort of, okay, what can I do to help with it? But we are running with it and we are doing it. And I think just to have the passion, like, it was exciting. Even just talking about it, I was like, that was awesome. Let's do it again. We're ready to go. Even after it ended, we were like, that was exciting. We might need a day of rest, but let's keep going. And I think, at a time like that, like you're saying, it gets to the point we could have said, you know what, this is scary and we're just going to stop here and let everyone else handle it. But instead, we wanted it. We wanted to show that these things are possible and that, whatever we have already built, yeah, sure, it's going to be new, but we're going to make it happen. That, to me, I think, is what a marketing team is.
We lived in the moment.
We're going to make it happen. Yeah.
And I think that living in the moment and taking the conference day by day instead of that, and this was a total mind shift from previous lessons in marketing and the way we did things, was we used to have every single thing planned out to a T before we went live. And that was not this conference. This conference, we lived in the moment. We took it day by day. I mean, the event changed hourly, and look at how
right up to the last hour.
Yep.
Yeah, it was in one of the previous webcasts we did where I believe it was the CEO one, and the CEO of the vitamin shop said, your long term used to be 6 months and now it's 1 week, and your short term is the day. And that's really what it was. We weren't even, if it's Monday, we don't know what's coming on Thursday. We're not even going to think about that. We're trying to get through today and plan a little bit for tomorrow. When we wake up, it's going to be different. But that, again, that's what we do. So it wasn't, it was a little bit foreign to us, and it was unnerving, especially for my teammates who love to plan and have things planned out. But like, it was just fueling us to just keep going, and make it happen.
So you've mentioned a lot more good stuff, and I can't wait to actually blog on some of the things that you're mentioning here, and by all means help me shape that from your perspective even more deeply in the written word. But I want to ask a few questions, if you will, just around this, and then try to sort of pull out some threads in time together to tie them together, if you will. But Colleen, you mentioned something very crucial. The marketing group, even though, as Avery, you said, there was a degree of plan that's put in place, then of course there's doubt that came in, or based on it, blowing up due to the crisis and what have you. And Colleen, you just mentioned likewise, some of this is built into the fabric for how you operate, right? In this way. And it is, and pulling in the piece from Kelly, it sounds like once you embrace that state of mind, it really, and the key word being embraced, once you embrace that state of mind, you lived in the moment, you were able to achieve that degree of fluidity, that liquidity through the journey. The question I have is, you pulled in others. You pulled in others as you embraced the reality. You pulled in others, and not everybody else embraces it the same way naturally.
No.
How did you pull in others? How did you deal with those that embraced it, those that didn't embrace it? How did you experience all of that?
I think that I think we learned that we get respect when we push for respect. We get teamwork when we initiate the teamwork, and that as a marketing team, we have to lead the way and set the stage for the success that we want to gain out of what we're doing. So we really had to set the stage when we pulled in and roped in other teams for micro as well as other people and really foster that.
Yeah, part
But
of the
we also
marketing
had
we
to
did was for the participation in it. Sorry, Avery. I was going to say, like,
no
we
problem.
just, you know, part of what it was we had to market to the people that we wanted to participate both internally and externally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what really helped us was that it was bigger than any one person at Micro, any department at Micro. You know, it was really contributing to something bigger. I think a lot of times a difficulty that marketing faces is people feel like when we need to collaborate on something that they're doing us a favor or that it's for us, and putting it really in their hands and saying, look at this power that you could have by letting your voice be heard on this conference, and, you know, putting the power and the honor onto them and saying, you know, this is bigger than who we are and you have this great opportunity. You know, those who would step up to the plate were honored and they were ready to go. And of course, there were some that didn't, and that's totally fine. We were able to, thankfully, we have some great people, and we were able to, with your network as well, reach out to some amazing people. But the people who participated, they had that same sense of let's make it happen, and they were in it 100%.
And I think we also had to recognize that not everybody was ready to make this journey with us, that there were some people that just weren't in that weren't comfortable with embracing those I don't want to say ideals, but embracing that uncertainty and the change, and that was okay too, but we couldn't let that stop us, and we needed to just proceed because, you know, not everybody was completely on board with this, and there were lots of questions internally about this and about what it meant and how, you know, how they could operate within this. So yeah, I think that was part of it, because one of the things you did ask about was what about the people that didn't come along? Because there were people that we spoke to that said, you know, it's not really my thing, or I'm not really feeling this. So
Yeah,
to
and that was
recognize
their
that also.
defining moment. Yeah, we weren't going to drag anyone with us because that's not authentic. That they would not stand for the message we were trying to put out.
Yeah, we can only be as successful as everyone involved individually wanted to be. And I think we had to really see, and communicating. I don't know about you guys, but communication was key through this whole process, whether it be with communicating with the people who really wanted to be on the panel speaking, communicating internally with the other teams that participated in making this event happen. I mean, communication was a huge foundation for this whole event.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic insights all around. I really appreciate what you said. It's when I said go, as I kind of painted out the timeline. When I said go, it's not go, everybody's on board. It's okay, let's move forward. And for lack of any other words, and I can't think of a better word right now, but it kind of the next step was sanctioned by leadership to be okay. At least, you know, we had that sort of that degree of oversight saying it's okay to proceed in this direction, but it doesn't mean everybody was on board. And I think that's a very, very, very key thing you're mentioning. Additionally, it isn't dragging people along. It's manifesting and then seeing, you know, who shows up and who contributes and all those things. You said the key word, the L word, you led. That's very, very key. And you know, as I listened to you talk, essentially you began to lead the way, and then those that joined, those that didn't, perfectly fine. It wasn't for them.
Mm-hmm.
I have sort of a, I want to introduce the vernacular and kind of see what your thoughts are, if you don't mind. That's all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always notice, and I think people will recognize it, I always ask permission from the Mighty Three, and I wait for it. So one vernacular that I would love to hear your thoughts on, and there's elements of it in the conversation already. One key thing that I look for in working with organizations, groups, leaders are really three characteristics that I'd love to hear your thoughts on as relative to this experience. One, is there an openness to change or not change? Is there an openness to something more, something different? So that's one characteristic. Two, is there care? Do you care about something other than yourself to contribute to? And that's come up already in the conversation just from what you described. But I'd love, openness is one, care is the second one, and the third one, I think this is the global piece of it. There's a degree of pain that causes us to change, to transform. In this case, pain is really COVID-19 and the realities that we had to deal with. But my question then becomes that if you look at that, that's the lens that I look through as a coach and a consultant. That's the lens that I look through to kind of observe if people are ready, if you will, and they're going to take the journey. Are they open? Do they care about something bigger than themselves? And then are they experiencing a degree of pain that would allow them to initiate kind of the next steps? When you hear those three words, how would you describe your experience and what comes to your mind relative to that lens?
I'll go first. As far as openness, as I said, we were looking to be different. We were open to whatever would not only, as Colleen said, help us survive, but also thrive during this. So we were open. We were absolutely open. Like that. That was, and that's always, I think, been a key characteristic of this department, even before the crisis. Like we were always open to hearing from other people about, different things, like, because at the end of the day, our goal was just always to be better, just to be better than what we were the day before. So there was always an openness. And as far as care, I think it was the day after the work from home orders came out, we all got on a call and we were like, we care about each other. We're not just coworkers, we're friends. So we care about each other. We care about the organization we work for, MicroStrategies. We want the company to not just survive but thrive. And just fundamentally, it's just being, to me at least, being human, to care about other people, and and wanting, recognizing, I should say, that everybody was going through this, that we weren't alone, that whatever struggles I might be having at home, that I'm sure there are plenty of people that are having those same struggles. I mean, I would get on calls with Kelly, who also has a young child at home, just like I do, and we would, just talk about some of the things we were facing. So there was always a level of care inherent in our own dynamics, and this just sort of, the crisis just sort of brought that up, to pushing that out, so that now we were focusing that lens of care outside of our own ecosystem to others that were affected by this. And as far as the pain to change, well, yeah, we wanted to still be here when this was all over. And that was, at the end of the day, that was, no matter how hard that might be or what pain that might involve, we wanted to walk out of this the other side even better than we were before. And if that meant tackling something difficult, that was what we were going to do.
And I think if you look at, as you're saying, like being open, caring, and feeling pain, if you kind of take it as how do I say this? You have to be passionate about your job and passionate about who you work with and what you're doing. And you have to be open to change. If you're not open to change, how do you evolve? How do you grow? I know all three of us, I mean, every day we learn something new. And I think it's when we're learning those things, that's pushing our career to a new level, and it's pushing our department to a new level, and that's enabling our organization to be stronger. So to me, if you're not open to change, then do you really want to grow and evolve? I mean, that's kind of mind boggles me. And if you're not willing to go through pain, hurdles, bumps in the road, then are you open to growing? Because you can't, nobody just grows out of positive experience. I mean, you have to experience that pain and those hurdles. And I know, you know, as a marketing department, we've all felt a degree of pain in our organization. Marketing is a lot of times underappreciated and not recognized. And in some senses, I think the word abuse would even be relevant. Is we deal with that all the time, but you have to embrace it. You have to want it to help you grow, and you have to learn how to work through it to come out on the other side stronger.
Absolutely. And my thought also is that those three factors are not independent of each other. And you have to recognize how, you know, your pain is fueling your openness. You know, we're put in this tight spot and we have this fear, so we have to be open. And, you know, because we are so open and ready to try new things, we have to care about what we do. Otherwise, you know, we're not going to execute to our highest abilities. And
yeah, we're not going to be successful.
right.
Nope.
And so to have all those three things, but also to recognize that you sort of can't have one without the other two, and making sure they manifest themselves in the right way. And I think we did that.
There's a quote somewhere when I was really trying to understand anti-fragility, and I think it was by Khaled. Is that how you say his last name?
Yep.
The author. He said, he used the example of a bone. So a bone is fragile. It can break. We all know that. But it's anti-fragile when it's stressed because it's becoming stronger. I think that says it all.
Very, very, very well said. So definitely they're interrelated, those three aspects. And one of the key triggers, exactly as you folks have mentioned already, is the notion of belief. That's a very, very key notion. If we don't believe in, and I'll just use my words, if I don't believe in the awness or the awe of the things around me, then I'm not really alive at that point. So that's something very crucial. And some people, I want to get to my next question if that's okay, but some people will experience pain, but they may not care about things outside of themselves, or they care only about themselves, or they're not open, in which case it breaks down and the trigger doesn't happen for them to really manifest, if you will, something bigger than themselves very openly. And I've seen that, you know, in my history of working with people and organizations and leaders. I want to get to the next question. So this is the next one, if you will, and I would love, it's a three-pronged piece again, and I would love your perspective on this. There's a lot of people that want something, right? They always say, I want this. Everybody wants something. And then they say, well, you know, I want something. I'm willing to do the hard work for it. And a lot of people will get to that second element and say, yes, I'm willing to do the hard work. But then less people get to the third leg of the stool. And that is, what are you willing to give up in order to get what you want and to do the hard work? What are you potentially willing to give up? So as you reflect on this experience and you look at it from that lens of, what did you want? You know, were you open to doing the hard work? I think the answer for you three definitively is yes. And then what did you give up? It's the third one. From that vernacular, how do you look at this experience, and what guidance and wisdom can you offer the world?
For me, it was giving up control in a lot of circumstances. I always thought previous to this that I was willing to give up control, and I had faith in my team, and I absolutely do, but I didn't realize how much control I still unconsciously held on to. And so for me, it was giving up that control that I was used to holding on to. If I had to say, like, there was one defining thing, that was probably the biggest thing that I was willing to give up to make this happen. And it was a struggle. Make no mistake about that. It was a struggle for me. So.
How about others? If I can
My
only read your mind.
I know I'm thinking because trying to just compare how things were for me compared to how they would be before is just I don't know if it's the security or the certainty, which I know we keep going back to. But generally when something, by the time it gets to me to be put out digitally, it's wrapped up and has a bow on it. And now everything was constantly changing, and so it's accepting that what I have is going to continuously change, but then it also is not a sacrifice, because now I get to have a hand in things that I maybe didn't before. Now I can make more suggestions into the wording and the design of things, maybe than I had before. So even though it's a sacrifice of, okay, I'm going to post this and it probably is going to have to change in a minute, but it was kind of, that's still exciting. So that's why I'm struggling, because I'm like, it wasn't really a negative or a sacrifice. And I, in my role, it's less than, Kelly, who was really spearheading from the event side, and Avery, who had to lead us not only as a team, but lead us through, executing this event. Personally, I don't feel like I had too much to sacrifice. Even if it was a sacrifice, I ended up gaining from it anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm with Colleen. I'm struggling with this question because I think all three of us, we are a very strong and robust team. We were strong before this, and I think we are even stronger now. So anytime we want something, we all go after it. And, and that's hard, because to me, my sacrifice through this event was probably time. We put a lot of hours in, and that was fine. I don't feel like it was a sacrifice. We wanted to do this. We wanted it to be successful. We wanted it to resonate with our audience, and we did what we had to do. I think, there was that level of recognizing that we had to step out of our comfort zone. As I mentioned earlier in our conversation, we're all planners, or Avery and I are certainly planners. And historically, everything had to be figured out to the T before we even launched an email. And, so maybe that was the sacrifice, was giving up control of a level of organization and just letting it evolve.
Yeah, the comfort in it. Normally we're so comfortable with everything we're doing, and we just weren't.
I think that goes also back to what I said earlier. We had to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the most amazing things came out of it once we embraced that, and we were like, okay, we're not going to know everything. And when I would talk to Colleen, I'd be like, we need to do these things, but they're probably going to change within the next 2 hours again. So I'm going to come back to you. I do feel like where we ended up with the event, with the digital conference, was so much better and so much more than, quite frankly, what we would have had if we had our usual time to plan, and we had our 6-week runway, and we had lined up everything beforehand. I don't think we would have, honestly, I don't know that we would have been so ambitious as we were.
Yeah.
It was freeing to once we were okay, we have no control, or this is just going to be you know, we're just dealing with a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of things that we were just like, yeah, let's give it a shot. When, you know, when we were like, okay, we're going to talk to our partners about possibly supporting the event, that would have normally been a very long bureaucratic process. And instead we were just like, hey, we're going to hop on a call, sometimes with like, maybe if we were lucky, an hour's notice, with somebody we had never spoken to before, to pitch them on the idea of, hey, participate, support, be a part of this event with us. And it would have, you know, it was a very different way of operating once we got started.
Avery, you nailed
it
it.
was
I
freeing.
think that was a huge takeaway. And I will say we're already implementing this in what we're doing now, and that's less is more. Less is so much more now. Shorter runways, less time when you're marketing to going live. I mean, that was a huge mind shift for all of us. Like Avery said, our
Yeah.
old runway, we would give ourselves 6 weeks. 6 weeks from launch to day of the event, whatever the event was, webcast, lunch and learn. And I think we've all agreed now that the maximum time we should allow ourselves is 3 weeks. And quite honestly, in some cases, 3 weeks really feels too long now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we launched an event last week, and within 1 week, we have seen probably quadruple the attendance we would have seen if we did a 6-week runway.
Yeah, it has been freeing, and you know, like you both said, there are no rules anymore. Sort of etiquette has gone out the window of giving people ahead of time. You know, we know they're home, they're in the same situation as us, and you know, things that maybe would have had to have gone through 3 steps of approval, and so many people had to look at it and get their eyes on it. We didn't have the time for it. Shoot it out, and this is just being us, being authentic. You know, it didn't have to come from the highest person at our company. It was just saying, hey, I'm a human reaching out to you as another human, and let's work on this together. It was not as formalized anymore, and I think that also resonated with people, and like you said, tied us back into, this is a human crisis. This is, you know, we're not here to talk business. We're coming to you as real as we are, and that unleashed us. You know, we were able to really execute even more than we could have in that shorter time frame.
Mm-hmm. I think we're also have learned that branding ourselves as well as branding the company is what's going to make us successful as marketers in our own journeys separate from our organization, but also in our journey with our organization. And I think that, you know, this event sets the stage for that. You know, who do we want to be, or who are we? What do we want people to see us as individuals, but also as an organization?
I hate almost to interrupt you because I just enjoy listening to you, quite honestly. So I want to ask a few more questions, and I know if we're running against our time window here, but you didn't always think like this, correct? This is
No. This
okay.
was a huge shift in our thinking.
Yeah. So I really want the listeners, if you will, to take that into consideration. I think exactly as you mentioned, all of you mentioned, the crisis has forced time to be compressed in very critical ways, and it's a level playing field, which is crucial. I definitely want to kind of emphasize that. There's a few other things I definitely want to emphasize, and I do have one more question for you, so I'm hoping that will leverage it for you to offer even more guidance. If anyone listens to this conversation and says this is all soft stuff, they have no idea what they're talking about, because this is what it took, correct me if I'm wrong, to really bring that event to fruition.
This was a huge undertaking. Make no mistake, it might have been compressed, but when you think about, like, you know, there were nights where we were working until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were, you know, like, our work days, our 8-hour work days were literally 8 hours of like call after call, communicating, as Kelly said earlier, to all the various players, because there was over 25 panelists, and we had our guest speaker, and then we had all of our moderators. So that was another roughly 15 people or so. And then we had the partners, the context of thing, 1909. So this was a huge undertaking, the sort of thing that before the crisis, I would have said was a 6-month endeavor to pull off.
Oh, absolutely.
So none of it is soft. The language that we're
No,
using, but it's real
no,
concrete
this is
business
real.
impact.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
hard work. It's
yes.
hard work at the end of the day.
And like
So,
Avery said, I mean, the hours we put into this, I mean, we were pulling 50, 60-hour weeks easily. And I mean, I think that was just the hours we were tracking to get it done.
yeah. Forgive me for I want to ask a few more things, if you will, or kind of, and I know we're running short on time. One of the key things, and I love the way you described it, if you want something, it doesn't feel like you're giving anything up. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and honestly, from my perspective, with the numerous organizations I've worked with, if they really want it, they don't say, well, I have a second job, or this is in addition, this is my second job. They don't even think in those terms because they don't perceive themselves as giving anything up. So I love the way that you folks express that. There's a few keywords that you mentioned, and I want to get to my last question, if you will, that I really want you to kind of talk to. You mentioned that, we naturally we're born crying into the world. We're fearful animals in any which way because it's the uncertainty, the unknown. The more we try to control it, the more it works against us, whatever it is. And then the less freedom we have and the less power we have. But the less we try to control it, it's liberating. You said that, and you very openly, and you said, for the freedom that you get and the power that it gives you to navigate the world. And it takes a lot, quite honestly, to balance our egos. That's where I think a lot of people struggle. You three were able to really work with respectful, and you have to have a degree of ego, but you worked with it in such a magnificent way. So kudos all around that very specifically. My last question, and I know we're short on time, and I really want the world to gain as much from this as possible. So any advice that you can give the world, and also I'm going to say through the vernacular of Robert Sternberg's notion of love, particularly, because to me, what you've mentioned is all built out of love, and that love has three characteristics. One is very much energy, right? You've put a lot of energy into this. He calls it passion, but it's a lot of energy. Two, you expressed a high degree of awareness of who you are, where you are, what you want, where others are, and then we're able to navigate. I call it awareness. He calls it intimacy. Same kind of concept. You're intimately aware of the environment. And then the third aspect is really the commitment that you made to the decisions that you put in place, and you executed and changed those decisions. You didn't lock yourself up to a decision. You didn't get wrapped around the wheel when something changed. So from the few minutes that we have left, if you will, from that vernacular, amongst other vernaculars, what is the single thing that you would like the world to take in terms of guidance from each of you?
I'll go. And I'm going to come at it from a leadership perspective. And it's simply that it's okay not to know everything. I think that there is a perception that leaders should automatically know all the answers, and that I didn't know all the answers. A lot of times, quite frankly, I came to you, Sai, and said, I don't know what to do here. I'm not sure what to do. Or I would go to Kelly or Colleen and say, what do you think? And I'm a little bit older than the other two on the call. So when I first started working after college, it was, what I call old school management. And the expectation was that leaders always knew, leaders always had the answers, and they were the ones that are supposed to provide all the guidance. And coming out of this, I don't need to know everything. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, you know what, there's somebody else that I work with that has the answer, and we can talk to them. And that doesn't diminish me at all by saying that. So that's probably one of the things that I would say.
Yeah, Avery, I would tie that into my thought of being confident and, being sort of the newest to the team. Being confident that what I have to contribute is valuable, but then that confidence also, I think, is what enables us to be able to receive feedback on our work. So if I know I can, put up the web page, put up the email, but to have my teammates and others critique it and make suggestions, for that open communication to be possible, I have to be confident, okay, I know what I'm doing, but these are great suggestions, and that's just going to build upon what I have. Because, you know, like you were saying, we got to the point we were open and honest with each other, recognizing, yeah, we have our specialties, but we still can contribute to each other. And being confident in your own work allows you to receive more feedback and then ultimately grow.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you guys nailed it. I love you guys. You know that.
We love you
love
too, Kelly.
Listening to you guys talk. If you operate as an island, you are never going to be successful. We could not have done this if we didn't operate as an amazing team. I said it earlier, we're each a part of the puzzle here. And Colleen just said it, you have to be confident in what you do. You have to be confident in your team members. Avery said it. We all know our strengths and weaknesses. Don't ask me about SEO. Don't ask me to go build a special page on a website. You want to know that? Go talk to Colleen, not your person. You know, you need something written really well, not your person. Go talk to Avery. You need help with an event. You need to organize something. You need clarity on that company. And I think we all know that. And we're not islands. And a lot of people think that they can do things on their own and it's going to be amazing. I can do this. I don't need your help. I can do this. I don't need your input. You are so wrong. You need your team. You need to be a team player.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. And and as we've talked, I know that the three distinctions, I'll say, that have emerged in many forms. If you're robust, you can take it, right? You can take a hit, you can take a blow.
Yeah.
If you're robust. If you're resilient, you can come back from the blow. And you can go ahead and not only take it, but come back from it. Not necessarily stronger, just come back from it. But if you're anti-fragile, you come back from it and you are actually stronger and you actually seek it. You seek stresses in order to become that much more stronger. Whether, Colleen, as you described it, in terms of feedback that will cause you to stress further, or in terms of time pressures, exactly as Kelly, you mentioned, in the compression of time and operating as a team and a unit, and likewise the grounding that's necessary in order to do that, as Avery, you mentioned. So with that, if you will, I give the world, and they're not mine to give, but rather I bring the light, if you will, to the mighty three, because you truly are the gem at MicroStrategies, and for that the world thanks you for everything. And I hope I've had a little bit of contribution as a gentle reminder of who you are.
Of course. Thank you,
Of course,
Sai.
we couldn't have done it without you, Sai.
Absolutely right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love you all. Thank you very much.